know why it does that, but it does that. Welcome, everyone, to episode 419 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. It means a lot to have you with me today. I am privileged to be joined by not only two SG-1 veterans, but two MacGyver veterans. And boy, do they have some stories. It's just the trick is to approach with the right key to unlock the right lock. You give them something, you spin them up, and you let them go. And that's just how it is with these two folks. Dan Shea, stunt coordinator for Stargate SG-1, and Michael Greenburg, writer, executive producer, Stargate SG-1. Welcome, folks. How are you guys?
I'm good. How you doing, David?
Very good. Mike, good to see you.
You too.
We have, let me just, oh, there's this thing is just screwed up here. Give me just a moment. Let me fix this. So, sorry about this, guys. I'm seeing something I do not want to see. There we go. Perfect. Mike, have we spoken to you? Dan, can you turn your camera for me, please?
Turn what?
Turn it horizontal for me, please.
Oh, okay. Sure. No.
Thank you, sir. Perfect. There we go. Mike, have we spoken since the announcement for the new show? Was that a thing yet? In terms of like live on air? I'm not sure.
I don't think we did. I don't think we did. But
dude, Stargate is back.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Man.
It is Martin Garrow's version, which I'm sure
yes.
will be great because he's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other Dan, we haven't spoken with you since. What do you think about the fourth series? What's on your mind?
Well, there's some talk of making me the lead of the show, and I turned it down because I was doing this $100 million feature in South Africa, big action feature with Ryan Reynolds. So I wish them luck, and. Well, actually, no, none of that's true. Why did I think I just made that up. But yeah.
You gotta be careful with my audience.
Yeah, I'm glad it's back. I wish it was in Vancouver. I believe it's going to be in England. So I wish them luck. So.
Well, I know that they're shooting to a degree all over the world. So there are certain things that are going to be shot in certain places, but the bulk of the photography will be done in London, and absolutely wish them all the best. The thing that is actually more recent in terms of Stargate news, SG-1 news in particular, that I find very interesting and at the same time no surprise at all, is that SG-1 has returned to Netflix in February, and I don't know if you know this, Mike or Dan, but and I'm curious on your take specifically, Mike, that by the second week, it had cracked the top 10 in terms of viewership numbers for.
Yeah, I know. I had heard something like that. It's well, it's a huge show, and it's, we told great stories, and our fan base is huge and growing, and it's a great thing. Netflix does a great job. They had it once before. I'm glad they got it again, because they do an awesome job in promotion and streaming. Yeah, so it's great. I mean, it's as alive as it's ever been. And Martin's new show, I'm sure, will feed ours as well, because keeping it relevant, keeping it fresh, people are going to want to go back and revisit the 200 plus episodes that Dan and I did.
No, absolutely. There is something about SG-1. I make no bones about the fact that SGU ultimately became my favorite, but there is something about SG-1 that cannot be duplicated, and that is Rick. There is a whimsy, just going by the seat of your pants. Here we are running into battle, Han Solo, Indiana Jones kind of thing that he's got that I've only really seen in Harrison Ford. It's that kind of texture to that character where it's like, I'm in this situation, and you know what? I'm kind of going to laugh about it because I'm in this situation, and that's just kind of what he exemplifies. It's always a bit of a wink and a nudge to the audience where it's like, that I know, right? You do know that, don't you? I mean, Dan, is that how you would kind of interpret his energy?
I remember going down to Los Angeles to watch the premiere of, what was it? Maybe it was maybe Stargate. I'm not sure. And I remember the audience like laughing out loud at Rick's little kind of movements and subtle little things, which you don't really notice. And that actually, even though I've been kind of coattailing him for like 25 years, that was the first time where I thought, man, he's a really good actor. Like he's seriously, like he's an okay hockey player, and he's sarcastic and he's funny. And you know, he's not quite as good looking as me, but he's pretty good looking. But that was the first time where I thought, God, the whole audience is laughing just when he drops a little eyebrow. And I remember Dana Elcar, we were doing, I think we had a MacGyver rap party, and he was up there and he was doing his actor shtick and saying how Richard Dean Anderson's such a great actor. And I'm like, you know, okay, sure. But then I realized that he does have something that really attracts the audience, you know, subtle little things that they react to. And it's really hard to duplicate. Like it's not something you can just flip a switch, or maybe he can flip a switch. But you know, I kind of hate to say it, but he's actually a pretty good actor.
It's flaws, actually.
Yeah.
Flaws, yeah.
Yeah. It's flaws. You know, a hero with flaws is way more interesting than a hero with bravado. You know, flaws are fun. Rick made it fun. He made, you know, all the scenes fun, even the serious ones with a wink, you know, or a nod. So it was fun. And you're right, the Indiana Jones character, what Harrison Ford did with that character was very similar. You know, flawed heroes.
It's not the years, it's the mileage.
Yeah. And you know, Dan's stunt coordinating and stunts were also flawed. No, just
very much so. Yeah, that's what they call me, Flaw. That's my nickname. You know, Flaw.
So they were a good match.
Yeah. But Dan, he never used to like my finger. Whenever I was holding on to any kind of a weapon, shooting something, doubling him, my pinky for some reason would always kind of poke up. And that used to really, really, really annoy him, the pinky. And also, it goes way back to MacGyver for doing hand inserts. He would always tell them, don't let me do his hand inserts, because he has these long-fingered, effeminate magician's hands. And he said my hands were short, stubby paws. So he never wanted me to be doing any hand inserts. He never even liked the wide shots of stuff blowing up and me shooting a gun. Or whatever, because my pinky would always stick out. I think he was just jealous.
He should have accepted the flaws in your hands.
Yeah. Whoops, I lost. Oh,
and the flaws in your heart. No.
Yeah, exactly.
Flawless heart, Dan. Flawless heart. The thing that I appreciate about Rick is that he is aware of everything. He's not just acting. Yeah. He's not just shooting he is. I was privileged enough to interview him on the USS Midway. And before he got to me, he was to the left and the sun was behind me. And I am trying to get some pictures before he comes to me, because we were cameraman and photographer. So one guy had the other guy had the video camera, and I had my camera. And I was getting in his light, because it was at the certain time of day, it was golden hour. And he called it, and he stopped me and he said, I need you to get out of the way. And I'm taking pictures and I'm seeing my silhouette on his face, but it's not occurring to me. And so he was good enough to at least say, you know, we're trying to do multiple things here. My turn was coming up, and I had to be like, oh yeah, I'd never really been in that kind of a situation before. I'd never been on a red carpet premiere, for one thing, but the sun was behind me and it was casting shadow on his face, and dopey me isn't seeing what's right before my eyes and in my viewfinder. But he was aware of that. So he's always looking for everything to be, and it's not because he's on camera, it's because he cares and he wants it to be a good product. And, you know, there are certain things that I got the impression he's just impatient with sloppiness, because there's always room to be better. And come on, kid. I was 22, 23 years old at that point. It's like, come on, get out of the way.
And plus he was on camera, and you probably made him look bad too. So
I was definitely, there was a David shaped cutout on his face, and that was definitely very irritating, I'm sure. But
Always, always put the subject with the backlight.
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah, you
That's
could have
it.
just swapped places.
Yep.
Well, he wasn't to me yet. We were all on the
Oh,
row on the red carpet,
yeah,
and someone else was getting their interview, and I was ruining
yeah.
it by giving him a shadow. So, but that was thanks to him, that was corrected pretty quickly there. Dan, were you on Legend as well, or were you just on MacGyver and SG?
No, I was not in Legend. No,
Okay,
no.
okay.
That
Michael,
was. Didn't you shoot that in England? Wasn't that in London,
No,
England?
Legend was in Arizona.
Ah, God. Oh, that's right.
I
Arizona.
Well, that was the
didn't
one
know
of.
that.
I think Big Boy considers that to be his most favorite character. Like, isn't that the one where he was like an inventor, the turn of the century
Not an
thing?
inventor. That was
Oh,
John Delancey's character,
oh,
bartender. Rick was a ink-stained wretch of a writer who, a device of the genre at the time was the writers would use their own image as their hero that they were writing about. So he used his picture on the cover of the dime novels that he wrote, the character Ernest Pratt, and he was reluctantly forced to be the hero that he wrote about when he wrote into towns. Do you know what I mean? Am I saying that right? I don't know. That's basically the concept. Was this ink-stained wretch of a drinker, womanizer, gambler, writer wrote this heroic set of novels called Legend, but he used his picture, which was the device of the genre, to use his picture as the character on the cover of the books. So he got mistakenly identified as Legend when he was just the writer. So he was forced to be this hero as he went from town to town into the stories that we wrote.
There
Yeah, it's pretty
was.
cool. I mean, the irony of our careers, at least at the time, was Legend was just phenomenal. Concept, the characters, the stories. It was the most fun to do because he just had a blast going from A to Z on the acting scale, and it was just so much fun. But it was limited to one season, and they're all great. But Legend, everyone should watch Legend if they can find it. Probably on Amazon.
It's streaming. I'm trying to remember where it is, but it is out there. It is out there
Probably
right now.
Amazon Prime.
And it goes back to the point about flawed characters
Yeah,
who rise up
yeah,
to become heroes. If your hero isn't flawed, where are they going to go?
yeah.
What are you going to do with them?
Mhm.
They can't just, you can't, people aren't just going to buy them because they're number one. Some folks might, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be any good.
Yeah.
So that was the thing that was so great about Jack was the film established what he fought through to become what he became by the end of that movie, where he went from a self-destructive human being to someone who helped a people survive, and he went back to Earth with a renewed perspective. Now, thank God, Rick decided to take that in a new direction and not go in the Kurt Russell direction, because as Brad Wright said, he couldn't be Doer for an entire, it would have sunk.
Oh,
But
he
I
was
always
very
look,
upfront about that. Yeah, right when we got pitched the concept and the series from John Symes, who was president of MGM at the time, we hadn't even met Brad or Jonathan yet. But as soon as Rick heard that it was a series based on the Stargate movies, he was reticent because of that, what you're saying, because of that Marine Jarhead character that Jack O'Neill was. I mean, Kurt did a phenomenal job with it.
but that was the role
But
though. That
Rick
was what,
actually,
yeah,
well, honestly said, I'm not Kurt Russell. I can't do that."
yeah,
And so
yeah.
then they gave him the reins to do whatever he wanted, and so that's what he did for 200 plus episodes. Anything he wanted, you know.
Dan, what was it like watching that character over, nearly 200 shows? I mean, you got a front row seat to the maniacal machinations of Richard Dean Anderson and just being spontaneous and just creating stuff that, I mean, he would say lines, and guest stars who were waiting for their cue wouldn't get it, and they'd be looking at him like, I wasn't expecting that. Now, what am I supposed to do with that? And like the joke was that we're getting this reaction on film, and more than likely we're going to end up using this because oftentimes it was even better. What was it like working with that man for that long of a time, from MacGyver through SG-1?
Well, it wasn't great. The one day my phone went off during his close-up.
Oh, no, that's right.
That was a thing we were all told in no uncertain terms back then. All your phones are turned off. And especially on Big Boy's close-up. I mean, that's just insane. And so there it was, his close-up, and all of a sudden we heard delete, delete, delete. And I'm thinking, who's the idiot who's so totally fired because this moron didn't mute his phone? And it kept ringing, and I'm like, come on, doesn't this guy get it? And I looked down at my phone and I saw this red light going off. And then I realized that, hey, I'm the idiot. And so I immediately shut it off. And then, of course, after the take was over, he always wants names. And he discovered it was me, but it was kind of maybe too hard to fire me. He could have and probably should have, but he didn't. But then months later, I was doing a Siler thing, and it was my close-up. And instead of having all the principal cast of little pieces of tape on the mat box and on the grip stands, all principal cast were actually there to react to me for my one line. And I'm thinking, well, wow, maybe these guys are respecting my one line acting ability all of a sudden. And then, but as soon as Brad Wright said action, I was about to say my one line, Big Boy rang his phone, ding, ding, ding. And then I realized, oh, I get it. So it was like 6 months later, and he held on to it. He never forgot for 6 months. And then every time I tried to say my line, he'd make his phone ring. And of course, all the principal cast were laughing off camera, but I couldn't let him get me. Like I couldn't, like I'm a bad enough actor as it is, but I pride myself in being semi-mentally tough. So I wasn't going to crack. So I just kept waiting to do my one line. And every time I tried to do it, he would ring his phone. Until finally the principal cast started laughing, and we got the take, and that was it. But the thing was, the coverage, they had this guest star, this older guy. They flew up from LA, and it was his close-up next. And he thought, holy crap, is this what they do to the actors? Like when it's a close-up, they're ringing bells and, making phones ring and laughing their asses off every time it's a close-up. But luckily for him, it was I was just the lucky one.
It was payback time.
It was.
Michael,
Yeah.
could that have been a fireable offense?
No.
Okay.
Dan's untouchable.
No.
No, I mean for like a
Dan
PA.
goes, I go, huh?
Like a PA.
No, I mean I think we talked to people more than fired them.
Okay.
We weren't a very firing organization. We were more.
Yeah, I think John Smith said he let like 2 people go in the entire show's run. I mean, it was like
Yeah,
really
we weren't-
small. You guys vetted well.
Yeah. I mean, there was that director.
Oh yeah, the French guy.
The French guy. Yeah, he was the closest to getting fired because he was making people cry on set as our script supervisor. And so we were shooting on the effects stage, the big giant effects stage at Bridge Studios, and I had to take him out back by the railroad tracks, and basically I gave him a choice. I said, either go in there and change your attitude and apologize to the people that you were harsh to, or you've got one last decision to make, window or aisle. Now, I can't take credit for that line. That's Charlie Correll's line.
That was a good line. I thought that was your line.
Yeah.
Great line.
Charlie had great lines. But anyway, so that was the guy who I remember came close to getting the axe, but
I remember Charlie when we were doing a location scout for MacGyver. It was supposed to be kind of a scuzzy neighborhood, and so we were actually walking through this scuzzy neighborhood, and they were all sitting, on their decks and balconies drinking beer at noon and 1 in the afternoon because they were all unemployed, which is fine. Doesn't make you a bad person. But then Charlie yells out that everybody can hear. He said, "Wow, what a Dusty neighborhood. And then he said, well, with my apologies for the people who are living here. And so he was funny.
Now, Charlie Correll, David, if you don't know who he was, because unfortunately he passed away a while ago, but he was the cinematographer for Animal House, and incredibly big shows like War and Remembrance, stuff like that. And he became a director on the first year of MacGyver,
I
and just
see.
one
Okay.
of the greats, one of the greats, one of the greats. His father was one of the voices for, oh God, what was that radio show? It was an all black radio show but they were white actors doing the voices, and
Amos and Andy.
Amos and Andy, which is
Yeah.
locked away in a vault at CBS somewhere because that wouldn't fly. But that was, so he comes from a long line of humorous family, and he was just so much fun to work with on set. I mean, Dan knows he was just a riot.
But speaking of dead folks, have you guys seen the new Facebook AI videos of, let's say, MacGyver, where they have a picture of Rick as he was in MacGyver, then Rick, present day Rick, walks into the shot and puts his arm around himself and waves at the camera. And then he looks over and we see Dana Elcar as he was on MacGyver, and then the present day Dana walks in with wings because he's dead. He's a dead guy. And then they go to Tavares, and so I started watching this on my phone. I freeze framed the shot of Rick, and I sent it to him yesterday. And we've been trying for like a day and a half to figure out how to actually do it, because I just kept looking at the pictures, so it kept coming back, and then friends, all the Friends people came, the way they looked then, the way they look now, and then Brady Bunch. But then finally figured out all you have to do is go to the Friends and punch in, what you want, and it just magically appears. But we spent hours yesterday trying to figure out, because Rick's brothers wanted to look at it. But it's pretty cool thing, pretty fun.
I'm sharing it right now.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh,
Yeah, there is. That's the thing with this AI stuff. It's not going away. And I've got a number of folks who are going to like really be upset with me for even sharing this. They are terrified, and rightfully so in many cases, that this is coming for so many people's jobs. This is the Holodeck 1.0 from Star Trek, and it's finally arrived, and you don't unring this bell, and people are going to continue to have access to stuff like, I'm waiting for it to come back around to Rick, and it's just not doing it.
Do they have to give the rights to that?
Nope.
Do they have to give it? There's Rick.
Nope, they don't.
Weird.
So,
Weird.
and that's what's terrifying about it, because artists have no control. There is no infrastructure in place yet, and there will be soon, to detect, especially on a social media platform like that, someone's face and forward that to the appropriate manager and say, hey, we'll unlock this if you pay a certain amount for the likeness, and we get to vet it first or whatever. Much like Apple iTunes with torrents and everything, there will eventually be a system where artists will have an opportunity to share their likeness under certain terms and conditions for a fee, which will scale based on how many views that video gets. And that's just going to be the way that it's going to have to be, but we're not there yet. And on top of that, there will always be people who will design software that will circumvent it. But these major platforms like Instagram and Facebook and X and Blue Sky won't allow it, because there will be some kind of law in place. But you don't unring that bell. It's absolutely wild. And fandom is very divided on it. Big. So you can't deny how amazing the technology is.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, they do look a bit weird though. Like you can always tell The
For now.
face looks, for now, yeah, it'll improve, yeah. But it's
That's
funny,
it.
I find that the older version looks a bit weird, like the older version of Big Boy, but the up-to-date one seems to be more accurate. And I don't know technically why that is, but
There's a number of reasons for that. There's the availability, the access to resources to duplicate him. A lot of the images now are a lot clearer. There's all kinds of, and sometimes it's just a certain person has a certain face that it works with better than others. So I've tried to do AI duplication on my voice so that I can get some projects done on the back end as like placeholder text, and then I'll come in and have someone else duplicate the dialogue later. But at least I have the correct length. And my voice is done weird. It doesn't really capture me well, but it's serviceable enough that I know what's being said and I know what to put in there, and then I can have an actor come in and dub it later. But the technology is just absolutely wild. So
are you real now? How do we know this is really you? Maybe you're still at the gym. I don't think it's you.
I could be.
Because you lost weight. You look like 50 pounds lighter than the last time I saw you.
I'm 100 pounds lighter.
Oh, well, there you go.
100?
Okay. Yep. Yep. And I'm on day 3 of a 3-day fast right now, and so I'm about to go a little bit further. So I kind of dig this. So I wouldn't have said that 2.5 days ago. Let me tell you, it's like, give me food. But yeah, no, I am becoming a healthy person. So yeah, we've got some fan questions for you guys.
Sure.
All righty. Yeah, Ned Kella 8175. Do the guests get to talk? LOL. Yes, he's absolutely right. Lockwatcher from Michael and Dan, of the 3 RDA inspired series, MacGyver, Legend, and Stargate. Which series, MacGyver and Stargate in Dan's case, which series do you think you faced some of your bigger challenges? Anything that stick out over the years? Dan, in Stargate, you had to go from Serpent Guard at the very beginning to being thrown up against a wall by electricity by the 200th episode. I mean, one thing after another with you there. Was it immensely different on MacGyver, or was it the same? Overall, really the same type of thing, ratchet pulls, squibs.
Well, I had way more to do on Stargate. I was the stunt coordinator, and I was Rick's double, and then I played Sergeant Slyler, so I was busy. Like on MacGyver, I was his stunt double for a couple of hockey episodes, but I stood in for him, so I had much less to do on MacGyver than Stargate SG-1.
Okay, that's fair, Mike.
I think the most challenging, as far as my perspective and what I had to do and responsibilities, was the filmmaking on Stargate was much more intense every day, because we had, I mean, the live action was the live action, and that was great, and that sort of ran itself because we had such great actors and the directors were all great. But combining it with the compositing of all the visual effects, those sequences, those big otherworld action sequences where we had to combine what we shot live action with all the different pre-composites that went into the final composite of that particular sequence, that took a lot because we had storyboards, yes, and we had some pre-composite works that we were looking at on monitors, but until it all came together, you didn't really know if you had it. But we had such a great post-production team and visual effects team creating these worlds and putting it together. We pulled it off, but it was challenging. So I think Stargate was the most challenging. Legend was probably the most fun. Every day. I mean, I couldn't wait to get there because it was so much fun. And MacGyver was iconic. I mean, MacGyver was, we were doing something that we didn't know at the beginning, but by the middle, by season 3, 4, 5, 6, and even 7, we knew we were striking a chord that no one else had done. I mean, the stories we were telling, the Save the Animal episodes, which we did 4 or 5 a season, the human interest stories, the urban stories, the rural stories, we were we were definitely telling great stories. And, that's what comes down to it. I mean, if there's one thing I'm proud about all three series, because I think they were all three iconic in their own way, is
Mm.
it's we told really good stories,
Mm-hmm.
really good
No,
stories. And
absolutely.
that's why I think they're so popular even today. I don't know why Legend, I guess because it's just one season, but if
Right.
people could watch the 12 episodes of Legend, I think we did a 2 hour and then 11 episodes, I think, something like that. So it's a limited series by definition now, but it is great and so much fun. But all of them, MacGyver, you could watch them all today as if they were shot yesterday because they're great stories that are still relevant today.
Who
So
owns Legend? Is it Paramount?
Legend was Paramount. Yeah.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
wondering if I could reach out to Paramount and get permission to live stream the pilot to try and get people into it.
Sure. Yeah.
Um,
Or Amazon. I think it's on Amazon too. But yeah,
okay.
definitely reach out to them and I'll help you. And
That would be really cool because I have always wanted to get into it, and I know a lot of people who want to get into it, and I would love an excuse to be able to say, here's the pilot, we're going to run it for free, we're going to talk about it afterwards and
yeah,
discuss it, maybe have Rick on to talk about it or something. I mean
definitely.
that,
I mean, yeah, yeah,
and you back, and
sure. We'll make
because
sure that happens.
I've always wanted to sink my teeth into it, and if it's available for streaming somewhere, well then by God, let's get people to go and have a look at it.
Yeah, and Charlie directed the 2 hour pilot. And
It's a
it's
two
brilliant.
hour, all the better.
Yeah,
It's a TV movie.
it's a TV movie, the 2 hour pilot. Yeah.
Mike, let's have that conversation
Okay.
because
I'm game.
it deserves to be seen.
It really
And
does.
I've always loved it. I love John Delancey. I love John
Yeah,
Delancey. And I bet
agreed.
he would be game to participate in something
Oh,
like that as
definitely.
well,
Definitely.
because he loved that character and he really enjoyed hanging out. I mean, he came on as a favor to Rick for Frank Simmons for 2 seasons. We got John friggin' Delancey on our. I was blown away. It's Q.
You.
So,
Yeah.
it's just absolutely mind blowing. I I just lost my train of thought. Where is my question here? Urias Tosh, Dan, were the green jumpsuits uncomfortable? Or did you ever, or the blue jumpsuits for that matter,
I
did
don't
you
have a
ever be
memory
like,
of wearing it, but
can I just wear normal clothes?
I don't think I ever wore the blue jumpsuits.
I've
I don't
got a picture of you in one.
really. Oh,
Uh-huh.
well,
Let's pull up here.
I kind of like tight fitting clothing, so it's like I think it was like nylon material. So instead of just putting the nylons on my legs, I could put it on my whole body. So that'd be great. So
Let me pull this
love
up
that.
here. Yeah, so there was one of each. So this is the blue jumpsuit here.
Oh, you need a jumpsuit. Oh, why? Oh, why? Oh, of course, there was a jumpsuit. Did you say?
Yeah.
I thought you meant like the green screen tight
No.
Oh, yeah,
No, I know Rick
jumpsuits
did
were
that
great.
for his insert shop with the coffee in 200, but yeah, no. Why does this always happen to me? Yeah, those
Oh, yeah, no,
jumpsuits.
of course, the blue jumpsuit. I wore that almost every day.
That was Stargate Command, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I love. In fact, there's one day I was. We had a hiatus for Stargate, and I wound up getting some days on a movie called Paycheck, which was across the street at the Vancouver Film Studio from the Bridge. And on that show, I was also wearing a jumpsuit, but it was a green one. So Stargate came back, but they wanted me to hang around on Paycheck for a couple of extra days.
Uh-oh.
And so I showed up on Paycheck on camera. I put on the green jumpsuit, and they put my hair a certain way, the character that I was on Paycheck. Then I ran across this. First of all, I said to the first day or second AD, are you going to need me for the next 6 hours? And they said, no, we won't need you because we're shooting upstairs. We won't need you for a couple of days. So I ran across the street to the bridge to Stargate. Then I took off the green jumpsuit and I put on the blue Sergeant Seiler jumpsuit. And then I went to hair, and then Patrick Hare looked at my hair and thought, why is your hair like that? So he put a bunch of hairspray and he combed my hair back the Sergeant Seiler way. And then I went to set, and as usual, I had one line, and usually they hold my line till the end of the day, which is good for me because then I could hang around and make tons of overtime and then do my line at the end of the day to 3 little pieces of tape, and then I'd go home. But on this day, I wanted to do my line and get the hell out of there so I could run back across the street to be on camera for a paycheck. I literally don't know if there's ever been a human being who's been on camera on 2 different shows on the same day, and neither show knew that this moron was trying to pull off this double dip. And so luckily for me, they wound up turning around on me. And just as they're about to roll on my line, I got another call, and it was from Dan. And I thought it was Dan, the AD, wanting me to run back across the street to where are you? But luckily it was Dan, a stunt guy wanting work. So I knocked off my line. And I ran back to my room. I took off the Stargate blue jumpsuit, and then put on the green paycheck jumpsuit, and then went back to set. And nobody had moved. They were all, it was 8 hours later, and it was a feature, and they were all just sitting doing their crosswords. And they looked up, and they were all sitting in the same spot, and they were all half asleep, except the hair person took one look at my hair, and it was combed now on the opposite side. And she said, get your ass into the hair department. And she roughly took a wire brush and combed it hard back the other way and sprayed like a whole thing of spray can onto my hair to make sure it wouldn't flop back the other way. But I had survived a double dip, which is the ultimate thing that you can do.
Double dip. I don't want the fans to think that you were in this business for the money.
No, it's for the art.
Double dip. It's really nothing to do with the money. Did you ever triple dip?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Because of Sergeant Seiler. That used to piss off somebody. We can't say this because people were actually on camera, right? We're not just
you're live. You're live right now. Just work around the edges.
Yeah, working around the edges. So anyway, so one person didn't really like me having all these paychecks, but G Money Michael used to always say, no, hey, do the producers not get paid if they write for Stargate Universe and Stargate Atlantis and Stargate SG-1, if they write scripts, do they say, no, we only get paid for one? No, you get paid for all 3. You get paid when you work. So when I was a stunt coordinator guy, I got paid. When I was Rick Stubble, I got paid. But then the odd time Peter DeLuise would write me in or G Money would write me in as Seiler. And then the biggest one of all was the triple dip. That was like three paychecks. And then, I prayed that this certain producer guy didn't find out, because then he would say, well, you should just be happy you're working, and you should be happy on one contract because
when you say triple dip and 3 checks, I don't want people,
which is like a tenth of what you make on without your residuals.
I don't think
so. You can take a triple dip of me and a 20-hour day, and I can be going home thinking, oh God, I'm so special. I'm so rich. My paycheck next week is going to be so much. And you would look at it and you would literally laugh your ass off. Yeah, you'd probably go, holy shit, how do these clowns live on this money?
But I don't want the fans to think that like we're doing this podcast to give legs to SG-1, to help enhance the streaming of the 200 plus episodes on Netflix because of money. Because it was really
because you'll get residual checks and I won't. Your residual checks
Dan.
are like $10 trillion. I'll get a residual check for $1.50 US.
See, here's the difference. Wow. Here's the difference. Mine are
a lot.
Profits. Mine are
Dan.
A lot is a difference.
Mine are profits. I don't get residuals. Oh yeah,
you do. Oh yeah, you do.
Oh yeah, you do. And directing.
You get a little. Yeah, if you take my salary for 10 years on Stargate,
I don't want David and anyone out there to think that we're in this for the money. It's really
no. But if you're in
the art and the storytellings and
but if you're in it for the accuracy, if you're anything about accuracy, you could take my 10 years of salary and with all the residuals, and you would make more in 1 week than I made in 10 years.
Yeah, but for me, it was the stories. For me, it was
not the money.
Saving people and animals and
not the first class tickets rights, and not the points and none of that
rights,
stuff.
Alien rights.
Rights, not the money.
Dan, the fact of the matter is that we're talking about this thing 30 years after it was done because the fans loved what it was that you created. And the show didn't disappear into obscurity like any other relic from that time frame of sci-fi genre that I could 10 I can think of off the top of my head.
When you said relic, were you looking at me? I thought when you said relic, you glanced right at my face.
I was referring to TV shows, not people.
But you're not saying that I'm a relic. Like
no, I'm talking about shows that people
Oh.
don't even remember from that time frame that
Mm.
that like have 2 or 3 fans. That you guys created something that spoke to people, and because it spoke to people, it's
Old
got
people.
another lease on life. Old people and young people. It's evergreen.
Seems like
And
mostly old people, but
I,
it seems
no.
like you're referencing old people. No, am I being too sensitive about the ageism? No.
Are we getting paid for this? Because I don't
Yeah.
remember
Oh yeah.
asking
Well,
for
I'm
any-
not. You
I
are.
don't remember David asking for any bank information or wiring.
Yeah. Well,
well,
it's
I mean, okay, so I mean,
Forgot to ask about that.
the thing is with me,
it's in Canadian dollars, right?
with me, you can't direct deposit. You got to do actually write a check. Like I'm the
I'll
only
take
guy at
Greenburg.
hockey that writes a check for the ice time. Everyone else
Care
is just
of
I'm good for U.S. dollars, Canadian
US
dollars, and
dollars.
South African rand.
the rand. Oh, I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to
rand.
check my
Do rand. That's
drawers
18
over
to
here. It's been a
1.
while since I've been. I may have some coins. So
No, it's okay. For David, David, we're going to do this for nothing for you. Because really, the content that Dan and I are putting forth on the screen
is
I'm
worth
not sure
nothing.
it's worth anything. Yeah. But we're trying.
Yeah, we're doing our best.
We're doing our best.
Yeah.
There's
Ugly
Dan.
pig.
Dan was going to broadcast from the Grouse Grind, but he thought his kitchen was a better backdrop.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit
Dan.
cold today. Yes.
did you ever find the wrench?
The wrench is in my basement.
The big
So
wrench,
it's still lost down there
Yeah.
because I asked you to go
Oh.
and get it once and you never found it. Were you able to find it?
Yeah, it's down in my basement. I bring
Would
it
you-
out whenever whenever we have a convention. I'll bring it to the convention so the fans can touch
Well,
the
if you
wrench
want
and
me
get
to
the picture
talk,
taken.
and you can go get it if you want.
We're convening now. Can you hunt
Well,
and gather it?
Well, it might be a bit of
Hard to
a,
find.
you know,
I know.
kind of.
Yeah,
And
we've seen
then,
his. He's got a lot of my stuff in storage down there too.
Yeah.
now. So
Oh.
you really want to come down into my basement and just kind of look around.
Hockey sticks and some pucks and
A couple runaways, a couple of kids that we've, who
I
grew
think
up.
he overcharges for storage, by the way, but not that money
Yeah.
matters to him at all. But
Exactly. Whoops.
you're muted.
Whoops, wrong button. Hang on just a
Oh,
second here,
yeah.
guys. Alrighty.
Any more
Okay.
questions from?
Yes, yes, very much so. So one of the questions I was trying to lead up to that was Ned Kalita 8175, was the wrench heavy, Dan?
It's a legitimate steel adjustable wrench. Yeah, it's got a bit of weight to it, but when I work out, I basically just do arms and shoulders because those are just
Heavier than his dialogue, I can tell you that.
Exactly. Oh, yes, pretty much. Yeah, it has a bit of weight to it. Yes.
Urias Tosh wants to know from Mike Greenburg. Mike, how do you think they're going, transitioning from 22 episode seasons into like 8, 10, and 12 now, and having it like?
Yeah.
Do you like the direction that this has gone in the industry? Do you think
Yeah.
it's changed things for the better, for the worse? I'm really curious as your thoughts from a producer's perspective.
Yeah, it has changed. I mean, everyone's doing these 10, 11, 12 episode series. It just seems to be the way the industry has gone. I'm not sure how it ends up because the body count, meaning the episode count,
Yeah.
was a big factor in, not that I'm doing this for the money, but it was a big factor in the money. You get to 100 episodes and you get to 200 episodes, and it's a way bigger deal when it's sold internationally,
Yeah.
and in the US and in the UK, like the new Netflix deal, which is US and I think UK and somewhere else, maybe Australia. I'm not sure. But so it used to be quantified that way, and now it's, I think it's budgetary. I think as the budgets went up and up and up, they went for less and less shows, so that at
Yeah.
the end of the season they were still spending the same amount, but instead of putting $2 million or $3 million into an episode, they were putting 6, 7, 8 million into an episode to make the episodes, better and finished. So
And more expensive.
Feature quality.
because everything's more expensive, you know.
That's certainly the truth.
The thing
No,
I don't like about the present day, especially streaming, is like when's the next season? Like used to be with 22 episodes and episodic, you would finish and then 3 months later they would
Yeah, you
pick
didn't have
up
to
for
wait.
season 3. Now it's like well, whatever happened to House of Dragons? Like I've been waiting for like seemingly 5 years for the next season. I've lost track of their season. Like
Yeah, I've
when's it
grown
coming
my
out?
hair so I could be in it.
Yeah.
Be one
You
of
look
those
good.
Kardashians. No, who are they? Those
Kim
Titanic-
Kardashian, yeah, the
Titanic-
Kardashians.
The
the
Kardashians?
Targaryens.
Targaryens, yeah.
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 My
You
daughter
have lovely
Kenya,
locks, Michael.
My daughter Kenya said I could be in that show if I could only act.
No, you can act. But seriously, David Reed, when is Game of Dragons or is it
House
Game
of the Dragon. I'm not
Coming
sure what's
back.
going on with House of the Dragon right now. The third series that's going on, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. It's currently airing, and apparently everyone's eating it up because it's funny and it's got a lighter fare. So that probably once this one has run its course, House of the Dragon will be back around again. It's got a very specific story to tell. I haven't seen it yet.
Dan, this podcast is actually Dial the Gate. It's not Dial the Dragon.
Yeah.
FYI.
But
We did have a dragon in the quest, but yeah, so for sure. Yep. Yeah, Mike, as a producer, I do want to ask you this to feed off of Urias's question here. And I've tried to pose this to pretty much everyone who has been involved with post-production at one point or another. And it's to Dan's point. The curious thing about these shows now is that their episodes have been halved or cut into like a third in terms of number. And instead of getting a season a year, we're getting one every 2 or 3. Can you spend a couple of minutes explaining what your opinion or your impression is to the logic behind that? Does it just have to do with increased quality, like audiences are expecting a feature level production on every episode of television now, or is it something more?
I'm not sure. I'm not privy because we don't get to meet with these streamers anymore. We used to be in their offices and in the studios when it was the studio system in Hollywood. I have no idea. I mean, it would be interesting to find out. I thought it was financial because they could put, the same amount of money into less episodes and get them finished in a high quality way versus more episodes at a lower price, and they maybe wouldn't look as good because they're dealing. I mean, when you talk about big shows like like House of Dragons and those are huge, feature looking television shows. I mean, ours was too, but I think, and I don't know, it would be interesting to talk to a programming executive. I think they still exist, unless they and find out why, the why on
Exactly.
that. I just think it's financial driven, like most things in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
it started before COVID, and
Hollywood
now it's just gotten worse.
and Hollywood is now, it's like Silicon Valley moved in, and it's, everything's changed.
It's a completely different business model in many cases. Stargate's new owner is I was buying. If you had
Amazon
told
MGM?
me, Amazon MGM. If you had told me 20 years ago that the place that I went and got my Huggies from, or not Huggies, but underwear and everything else from online would be the place where I was going to log in and get my Stargate, I think I would have laughed in your face. Yet here we are. And Apple as well. They create amazing programming.
Yeah. I mean, it's it'd be interesting to know the reason. I think it's probably financial
Okay.
and quality. Quality, a high qualitative bar that you have to hit to be a hit, and then the money that it takes to achieve that these days is higher.
Yep. I agree. Dan, I have another question for you. If you and Amy Warrior Princess wants to know if someone didn't know what Stargate was and you had an hour to kill to sit with them, which episode would you pick to introduce the show to them?
Oh, the 200th.
You don't have to tell me the 200th? Really?
Yeah.
With all the inside jokes?
Yeah, because they wouldn't get any of it, but I'd get them. So, that's all I care about. Yeah, that was a funny episode. I really like that one.
Mike, were you there for 200?
Really?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know. I was there till the end of the 9th season.
8th season, yeah.
Oh, 8th season, yeah.
Yeah.
And although I got paid for the 9th.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Again, if you were to take what you got paid in that one season where you didn't show up, and you take my 10 years of working in like overtime, coordinator, doubling, recurring role, you still would have made more in that one season where you never showed up than, well, obviously, than I would have made in 10 seasons, but times like 10. So, in fact, I couldn't even live long enough. Like I'd have to live to about 150 years old, working every day, just to make what you made on MacGyver. And then you had MacGyver, then Legends, and then Stargate. So like I'm kind of behind.
Just keep waking up. Just keep waking up and
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Patio
and
furniture's
you buy
on sale.
and do I have to buy breakfast again or what?
No, you wouldn't.
Come on,
let me.
guys.
I'll try.
I had to pay for breakfast on Sunday.
Had
Can
to.
you believe that?
Had to.
Mike, what episode would you introduce a fan to? A potential fan?
I think the pilot. I think the 2-hour pilot both for SG-1 and Atlantis. I had zero to do with the universe or whatever that was, and but Atlantis, I did the pilot. So I think the pilot, it's pretty much lays it all out with the cartouche and all that. The great idea that Brad and Jonathan had to give it legs, and the ability to do 200 episodes, more Stargates, and finding this cartouche of dial home device, addresses, was the key. So I think the pilot is important, and as a way to, to motivate people to watch more. But it gives you the foundation from which we launched.
I am happy with the movie. The movie is not fun. The movie is not funny.
The pilot, the 2-hour pilot?
No, I'm getting to that. The feature film is not funny.
No.
Children of the Gods it has the heart. And I mean, like, I think it was Rick who said, he came to the line, for this, you could stay at my place. And he was like, that's the character that I want to play. Yeah. And that's who we got.
Daniel Jackson, Michael Shank's version versus Spader's was different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. More. Yeah. Yeah. But that's, not to take anything away from what they did, because they were doing a serious concept.
Yes.
With serious.
It was heavy stuff.
Characters. It was heavy stuff. We, to get Rick hooked in, he had to have the reins to do whatever he wanted. So, that turned out great in the long run and much more fun to watch.
Absolutely.
Week in and week out.
It's been an hour, guys. I didn't mean to take you for this long. Do either of you need to wrap up right now?
No, we can do whatever.
I've got nowhere to go. I've got no friends.
You do? Okay. Okay, geez. We talked about this a little bit last time, but I wanted to ask again more specifically to Michael. What was involved in the process of going from film to digital with Stargate, and what was your involvement in the testing and the rollout of that? Because that's not a simple process. And I know that in season 4, there's a phone. In season 4, you guys did a whole episode called Entity, which was specifically testing the digital technology, which was done inside of Stargate Command. So as early as that point, you guys were looking into that.
Oh yeah, we were I think we might have been the first series to use the Genesis camera, which was a combination of Panavision and Sony. And when they introduced it to us and brought it up to us, I mean, talk about a stage wait. The camera looked like a Panavision camera. Yeah, it looked like even before that, it really looked like a Panavision camera, and it even had you know, the film container on top, and but even though there's no film in it, but it was huge, and it had this tethered to it, which had all the cables that ran into this bank of computer modules that if we had to do a dolly shot, we had to set up two dollies, one for the camera and one for the electronics, one for the computer bank that was tethered to the camera so that it could record, because there was no film. It was all recorded onto these recorders. And
Wow.
this is before the little chips that go in the cameras now that are tiny. It was before all that gigabyte stuff, and it was monstrous. It was one of the tougher transitions. I mean, people talk about, you know, going from 35 millimeter to 16 to back to 35 and all that. That's easy. That's just, you know, film. But the transition at that time, 1997, I think it was wow. It was huge. It was huge. I couldn't believe we were doing it. When I saw the dollies, when I saw the grips having to lay two dolly tracks, I knew we were in trouble. You know, it was crazy, crazy.
That's
But we
time,
made it.
that's
We
real
made it,
estate,
and
that's all
then
kinds of things.
and
Yeah.
when the brilliant people at Panavision and Sony, you know, kept perfecting and perfecting, they never, I think they worked 24/7, those engineers, and they came up with a system that kept getting better and better and more, you know, transportable and usable. And then, of course, nowadays with the chips, it's just easy, and you know, it's great, and the film looks great. So it happened. But yeah, we were there right at the birth of it.
Man, that's
Yeah.
just not. Thank you,
I
Matthew
think
Hammond, for that question.
there's probably stills, production stills of that. Maybe someone can find them for you that you could see, because I remember seeing, you know, publicity stills, production stills of that Genesis camera when it first arrived. I remember the first time we used it was in a scene in the GVRD, which is where we shot all the forest type scenes here in British Columbia, and setting it up and managing it was brutal, but you know, worked out. See if you can get some, and I'll try to get some.
I would love to.
of that for you. Yeah,
That would be great. Yeah, always interested in the technical stuff. Absolutely.
yeah.
Dan, Marsha Middleton wants to know, when you were young,
Wait,
what
wait,
were-
hold it. Are you doing this ageism thing again? What's the up with Marcia? Oh my God.
Marsha is lovely, and
Yes.
and she is one of the older Stargate fans I know, and doesn't look a day of it. So, all right. So Dan, she wants to. She
Dan's
said
one of
when
the
you
older
were.
Stargate guys I know.
What's that, G-Man?
I said Dan's one of the older Stargate guys that I know.
Exactly. Well, before I answer the Marcia question, do we know how G-Mun became G-Mun? I'm surprised you didn't ask that question, David.
Oh, the nicknames?
Yeah, do you know where that came from? That was from Chris Judge on season 1. We were all standing around, and Chris Judge said, you know, Greenburg, money, lots of money, and then he called you a Greenburg money. Then he shrunk it down to G money, and then G money became G Mun, and so that's been the handle now for 3 days. So Chris Judge should get some residuals for the.
Yeah, it was on my chair. They put it on my chair.
Yeah,
They did?
G-Mun.
Yeah, on the back of my chair it said G.
That's not one I sold.
not.
My godson's friends call me D Money, and there's no reason why. I don't know why, but they do. So.
Oh, sorry. Ask the Marcia question. I interrupted. Pardon me.
Marcia wanted to know, and she specifically said when you were a kid, and I massaged it to when you were young, and clearly that didn't get me any points. Dan, when you were a kid, what were a couple of the stunts in movies that really captured your imagination, made you go, I want to do that. I want to try that.
Stop even asking. I got it right here.
Did you have
The
a
Great
television
Escape.
when you were young? Did you have
Steve
a television when
McQueen,
you
The
were young?
Great Escape, when he was on that motorcycle.
Wow.
and he took off his Nazi outfit, and he had that sweatshirt on. He started going up those hills, and then he came to the fence, and then he was, and then the Nazis were coming here, and the Nazis were coming there, and he had no alternative but to take that motorcycle and go over top of the fence. And then his stunt double, originally I thought it was, there it is. Originally, I thought it was Vince Dedrick Sr. I thought it was Vince Dedrick's old man who did that, but it wasn't. It was a different guy. But the stunt double showed up and did that gag. The whole idea was that Steve McQueen did all of his own stunts. He didn't do this one. This is cool. So, and it's funny because you look at that, and nowadays that looks like nothing. Like that's what the kids do in the park. But back then that was like the coolest gag you could ever.
Steve did that?
No, his stunt double came in.
His stunt double. I apologize. I was paying attention to the bike.
The implication, and they always like to pretend that they do everything, but Steve McQueen is the one guy who pretty much did all of his driving except that one particular motorcycle gag. So for me, like I wasn't thinking about stunts. I just thought it was super, super cool that Steve McQueen would do that.
Man, that is wild.
Yeah, Great Escape.
All right, The Great Escape.
But you guys, do you even remember? Do you even know about The Great Escape, David Reed? No, you don't, do you? But you found it.
I was aware of the film, and I know who Steve McQueen is, but other than that, I intend to.
It's a great film.
Well, what about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Quentin Tarantino one? You know, they put in Leo DiCaprio in the Steve McQueen part where he's standing by the fence.
Oh, I see.
I'm looking for my baseball. It's well, you cannot go there. Yeah, but it's all. I need my baseball, and it's strictly forbidden. You know that. Cooler, 20 days. And that was one of the coolest scenes of all time. So cool that Tarantino felt obliged to duplicate it with Leo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time.
Talk about a trip of a movie. That was a wild film. Mike, can you tell me about this?
Oh yeah, that was when I left Stargate, I went to the Score Sports Channel for a few years, and then my brother was made the head of original programming for the NHL. Ross Greenburg, my brother, legend, 2 Hall of Fames, boxing and television Hall of Fame. Anyway, he got this deal to do original programming, and we came up with the series Quest for the Stanley Cup, which is what that was. And that was the end of the 2019 season, where we followed St. Louis from last place at the Christmas break to winning the cup. They were literally in 31st place. Back then there was only 31 teams. They were in 31st place after the Christmas break, and they ended up winning the cup. They brought in Bennington in goal from their farm team, and Craig Berube was the coach, and Ryan O'Reilly ended up winning the Conn Smythe MVP. That was amazing. And I didn't ask to drink out of the cup. They pulled me in there. I was at the monitors outside the dressing room. We had our cameraman in there, but they made me come in there and drink from the cup. That was thrilling. That was great. I'm glad they got publicity stills of it, because it was really cool. It's a
once in a lifetime thing, and going from 31 to 1, it's like I'm a St. Louisian. I'm from about 80, 85 minutes outside of town. Yeah. Originally. And so like when I'm not a hockey guy, and I knew about that. It was just so mind blowing. It was absolutely amazing.
Incredible. It was an incredible journey. The Blues fans were amazing, and the parade, the whole thing. But them getting to that final game at the Boston Garden and pulling it off was just unbelievable. Never witnessed anything quite like that.
This is sort of off topic, but kind of not really. I went to see Rachel Maddow a couple of nights ago, and I remember Game 7, St. Louis Stanley Cup Finals. There was myself and Ross Greenburg, Prez, your brother, and RDA. I thought you were on this thread too, but maybe you were physically at the game. But I remember
I was there at the game.
I remember sending a message to Rick and to Prez, Ross Greenburg, saying, "Don't tell me the score of the game, because I'm going to be watching Rachel tonight." And then Ross, your brother, said, hey, don't tell me either, because I'm going to be watching Rachel. I'm not going to be watching the game. And then Big Boy, Minnesota boy, Richard Dean Anderson, hockey freak, he said, hey, that makes three of us. So three hockey freaks didn't see Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final because we were watching Rachel Maddow. So
you watched Quest for the Stanley Cup, though.
Oh, of course I watched that.
Yeah.
I never missed that for a million years.
Yeah.
It's still on my list, Mike. I intend to watch it.
Hey, G-Money, if you touch the cup now, it's going to curse you. Like if you get the skates on and start playing again, you're going to be cursed if you try and win it. So that's the thing. You should never touch the cup because now you're never going to be able to win it as a player.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So if you're thinking about suiting up again, then you're doomed.
Okay.
Because I would never touch it because there's still a chance that I can still make the show. That's why I'm playing beer league, 3 days a week to be ready.
Yeah. I don't like walking on stairs when it snows, so I think I'm good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right.
Mike, what was your number?
My number in hockey on the MacGyver team? I don't even remember.
Oh, yeah, right.
There is a picture circulating, though. I don't remember my number, but we had a MacGyver team and a Stargate team. And
yeah,
that's cool.
I pretty much sucked, but they let me play. Not the greatest backwards skater, but
leader. You're a leader in the room.
I can't say that my head was always in the game.
Yeah, Big Boy was always like screaming. We would go and play on a team here in Vancouver, and within 2 minutes, Rick would be yelling at the players, total strangers that they were kind enough to invite us out to play for their ice time that they had had for 20 years. And within like a minute, he's screaming at them that they're not playing properly.
Not in the game. Yeah.
Head's not in the game. Oh, Garrett. And there was a camera guy. Was it Stargate or MacGyver? I think it was. What game? I think it was Stargate.
Trig? Oh.
Yeah. When no, not Trig. Gary Viola.
Oh, Gary Viola.
He was on the ice.
MacGyver.
And Rick yelled at him to get off the ice, and he wound up freezing like a deer caught in the headlights. And I think he wound up getting a penalty or something. Too many men on the ice, and so Rick just reamed about, and he was never the same ever again.
Yeah,
Rick's serious about his hockey.
For some reason, there was yelling. There was yelling in the MacGyver hockey games, but not on set. No yelling on set, but in the hockey, there's yelling.
A lot of yelling.
Yeah. There's pictures. We'll get them for you, Dave.
Please, I cannot wait. Guys, I have one more question for you both. Yeah. Raj wants to know, Dan, I'll start with you. What advice would you give someone interested in being in your industry, your specific pocket of your industry?
Get an education and don't even bother because of AI. I don't even know. Like I'm like 85 years old and I've been doing this for decades. And I know everybody, and I'm crapping my pants every day that I may never work again because AI is going to take over everything. So if you're just starting, there's no residuals. There's no 22 episodes. There's no shows that go 10 years. Like, don't even bother. Get a real job. That's my advice.
Or my advice would be write a great script. Start with a story, and then break it down and visualize it and write a great script. And because of the iPhones now, and if you have friends who can act, go out and do it, make something, write something, make something, just go for it. I think writing and actually making a film is the way to go. If you're passionate about it, you'll find a way to do it.
Guys, this has been great. Thank you so much. It means a lot to have you. I am so thrilled to have you both in our orbit here as we get ready to ramp up for this next thing that Stargate's going to do. We've got some time. It's going to take a little while before it gets to us, but the fact that places like Netflix are recognizing the IP as something worth continuing to preserve and share with new fans. I cannot tell you how often I have someone email me who says, I've just discovered this show, Stargate, and I'm going through your channel now, and it's like, well, put my channel aside and go and watch the show because we're going to spoil it for you. So come back to us when you're done with the 354 episodes. But new people are always discovering this thing. It's because it has stories that in some cases are more relevant now than they were when they were made. And
they can all go on the boat cruise too in next January out to Miami.
Cruise.
That's the thing that I want to do. I'm going to be swabbing the deck. What I'm doing, I'm buying a mop. And I'm going to bring a mop to Miami, and I'm going to say to the promoters at Gate World, "Hey, look at I know I'm not very good looking. I know I'm not very funny. I know the fans don't really like me, but I got this big mop, and I can mop this deck for like a week if you let me come on that cruise." Because I mean, Miami, and then their big boy was saying they're going to be going to all these different islands and all this kind of stuff. So
yes, there's 3 destinations.
I'm gonna be swabbing the deck. If they don't want me to come, I'm swabbing.
Well, no,
I can't help but notice that Dan Shea, the S is lowercase. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, because they're belittling me like always. That little dig.
Where?
There's always like the little dig.
In his little square.
His square is not lowercase s.
Oh yeah, it is. I just noticed that. D is a capital, but Shea, my last name, is small letter.
Kind of diminished. Wow. Kind of diminished.
There's always that little dig to the Irish guy.
I think you're gaslighting me. Are you talking about this one?
No, there was another one.
The one above. The one
that's beneath my picture.
Beneath your picture.
Maybe it wasn't intentional though.
No, but I can see that. I can see the small.
Maybe it's
small
not
S.
intentional.
Because us Irish people have always had to endure that kind of stuff down through the decades, and we just keep on hanging in. And then now we're swabbing decks on Stargate, cruises.
So yes, gatecruise.com. This is the place to go and check this out. They've got Ricky Dean Anderson, and apparently some people called him Ricky. I did not know this until a couple of directors came on and started calling him that. But anyway. And we have Amanda.
Nice.
Michael Shanks.
Nice.
Christopher is afraid of boats, so that's not going to happen. Rachel Luttrell.
Nice. She's
and
great.
Paul McGillion, and more cast members to be announced soon. This is awesome. Fantastic, and it's a Caribbean cruise. I am so fortunate because this is one of my favorite ways to vacation, and my folks are actually going. They signed up before I did, and these rooms are selling out. They only have a specific number of rooms allocated to the boat, and it's not the entire boat, but there's only like they can only fill it up to capacity of the theater, which is 1,000. And they are well on their way. So if this is something you're remotely interested in late January of 2027, go and check them out. And you don't have to pay everything up front. There's a down payment. So gatecruise.com. And I'm not being paid to share this information. I'm just going to be a passenger who hopefully gets to interview some cool people. Guys, thank you so much.
We're not getting paid?
No.
I don't think so.
Oh.
Okay. But they're going to give me a little bit to swab the deck. Just a little.
I'm not in it for the money anyway.
Yeah, no money.
It's the
G-Man.
It's the art.
G-Money.
The art.
Okay. Guys, it's been a treat to have you. Thank you so much for spending so much time with us.
And also, David Reed, Sharon Sims is quite funny. She doubles Amanda. So I think you're considering having her on sometime. So.
Not considering. We're booking her in April.
Oh, because she was going to do the gross grind with me today. She's a monster physical specimen. Like she can do, they do these Olympic style things in the desert where they ride their bike and they run. And you'll love her. She's incredible.
I'll head there now. I'll meet you there.
Huh?
I'll head there now. And I'll meet
you. To the
you
grind?
There. Yeah.
Yeah.
See if we can beat Connor Bedard's 37 minutes.
Yeah.
So Sharon Sims, she was Amanda's stunt double, and we are going to be having her on in April. So Dan, thank you for making that possible, and thank you both.
And just quickly pushing, you can't shut me up. But the one of the reasons we had to get Sharon was because the double we had before her was a world-class rower, and she had huge pipes, and in the scene. Amanda was supposed to wear her jacket like she always does, but then she decided just to take off her jacket just for fun and wear a t-shirt. But my double had guns bigger than Arnie Schwarzenegger. and and she had vascularity, like big veins wrapped around her forearm. Yeah, she had the big three, you know, size, symmetry, and vascularity. And so finally, Amanda had to put her jacket back on, and even through the jacket, you could see her Popeye forearms. So we had to get rid of her and get Sharon Sims, who does not have huge pipes.
Please point out this screenshot for me because I'd love to see it. And lucky for Sharon. So, guys, thank you. Mike, thank you.
Take care.
Dan,
Thanks,
thank you.
David. You're the best. Okay.
See
We'll
you
be in
guys.
touch real soon. Bye now.
Thank you. Goodbye.
That was Michael Greenburg and Dan Shea, writer, executive producer, and stunt coordinator for Stargate SG-1. And these folks are just the best. We are so lucky as fans to continue to have a line of communication with these guys years later. And the fact that the show's coming back, I mean, it wouldn't change the fact that we're doing this show. I'm lucky to have them all the same. If you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, do give that like button a click. And if you enjoyed the conversation, do leave a comment. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. And do me a favor and click that bell notification so you get many notices of any last minute guest changes. And clips from this episode will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and gateworld.net YouTube channels. There's a number of shows still heading your way. You can check out dialthegate.com for all those details. Thank you, Marcia and Lockwatcher, for making this this possible, and Anthony as well for providing mod support on the back end. It's a great space that we get to bring fans in and get to ask their questions for free. And I'm so tremendously lucky and thankful to have all of you here. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you on the other side.